Hello? Who's that? Oh, hi. What are you doing out in this mess?
1, 2, 3,
We weren't doing anything. We were just messing up.
4, 5, 6,
Must be my imagination.
7,
Can I help you? Hello?
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, Friday, the 13th. You may only see it once, but that will be enough. Friday, the 13th.
Welcome to the latest episode of the B Movie Club. I'm your host, Kevin. This week we'll be discussing the 1980 horror classic, Friday the 13th, starring Kevin Bacon, among others. For those of you joining us for the first time, each week on the B Movie Club, I discuss certain guilty pleasures and forgotten classics of the past. Go ahead and go to our page on Facebook, Original B Movie Club, and give us the big thumbs up. Then go to our page on YouTube, KD9575, that's me. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Boom. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at The B Movie Club. Spread the word. Let people know you get the latest updates whenever I post a new video. Any interesting links, any interesting facts about movies. I'm your one-stop shop. Okay? So there you have it. Friday the 13th. There's this camp, Camp Crystal Lake, where back in the late 50s, there was some sort of issue. A child drowned in the lake because the camp counselors were too busy. they were just too busy getting busy, I guess is the moral of the story. Then a year later, some counselors were murdered. So it had been closed for 20 years or so. Now in the early 80s, they've decided to reopen the camp, kind of, refurbish it, repaint, nail some boards in place, make sure the archery range is ready to go, make sure, the lake is nice. I don't know, whatever camp counselors do, So, you've got a young guy who's running the camp, and he's brought in some teenagers to be the camp counselors. He's got 2 weeks until the camp opens. They just got to get it ready, okay? So these young people come from miles around to help out. They seem to be a lot of drinking and smoking weed and doing the nasty. I mean, I don't know what kind of camp they're running here, but this seems to be a problem. You know what I'm saying? They're going to have young kids running around and there's like the haze of weed in the air. This is a problem. And I'm not the only one who thinks this way, evidently. When the kids start arriving, people in town are like, quit, don't work there. The camp is cursed. You know, bad things always seem to happen there. There's even an old crazy guy going, hey, don't go there, you're doomed. So, nonetheless, people are like, whatever, we're going to do it anyway. And then, shockingly enough, one by one, the people meet their demise. One by one. You don't see who's doing it. You oftentimes just see like a hand coming and getting them. So it's very sad. You know, a girl was hitchhiking, which is, frankly, that's a bad idea anyway. She was hitchhiking to the camp. She gets chased through the woods and killed by an unseen person. A few other people die on the archery range, in the cabins, in the bathroom. It's very upsetting. One by one. Until there's only one person left, Sweet Alice, who was smoking a J while playing some strip Monopoly, you know? Hey, that's how they do at this camp, evidently. She runs around, discovers all the bodies everywhere, and when she's about to run off into the forest, a kindly woman named Mrs. Voorhees arrives on the scene. Oh, it's okay, honey, I'll take care of you. You know, I used to be a cook here back in the 50s until my son Jason drowned in the lake because the counselors were too busy knocking boots to watch my sweet special Jason. So now I'm on the loose. Spoiler alert, Mrs. Voorhees is the killer. She's kind of this middle-aged woman with like short hair, wearing a crazy sweater. And now she's on the loose. She's the one. She chases Alice's all around with axes and machetes. It's very upsetting. I don't want to spoil everything, more than I already have. Okay? This movie, like I said, came out in 1980. Originally, they just had a title. Friday the 13th. They wanted that to be the name of the movie because of the success of Halloween a couple years prior. They're like, hey, we're going to cash in on this whole, let's name a horror movie after like a holiday. You know, things like that. Arbor Day. That was never a horror movie. So they really didn't have a script yet, but they're like, okay, we're going to put up a promotional thing in newspapers and things like that. Friday the 13th. It's horrifying. Because they figured if somebody else already owned the name Friday the 13th, they wanted to deal with that, early. They brought in the director, Sean Cunningham, who had previously worked with Wes Craven on Last House on the Left. And the writer of the original script, which was going to be called A Long Night at Camp Blood, not very catchy. Victor Miller, he went on to write for soap operas such as Guiding Light, things like that, so that's always nice. They started casting people, unknown actors, to populate it. They were basically looking for people who looked like they could be in like Pepsi commercials, things like that, kind of all-American. One of the actors they picked was Kevin Bacon. Hey! Who had already been in Animal House a few years prior, but was still relatively an unknown. Now, after this movie, he blew up, as we all know. He was in, like, Footloose, you know what I'm saying? Quicksilver, if you remember that little gem. He was all over the place in the 80s, as I'm sure you remember. But this was kind of another thing that kind of kicked him off in that direction. The biggest name in this movie at this time was the woman who played Mrs. Voorhees, Betsy Palmer. And she had been in like movies and TV shows back in like the 60s and 50s, so she was kind of well known, people in the industry, I guess. The only reason she agreed to do the movie is she's like, you know what, I desperately need to buy a new car. Pay me $1,000 a day, we'll get it done. She read the script after the fact, was like, this is crap, I don't know why I'm doing this. Oh yes, I need a new car. So, there you have it. Another little interesting thing, another member of the cast is a guy named Harry Crosby, who's actually Bing Crosby's son. Hey! See, it's an all-star cast. I wouldn't steer you wrong. One of the people that they brought in, one of the first crew members, was Tom Savini, who was a special effects wizard. He'd worked on Dawn of the Dead. Later he worked on Creepshow. He's actually a bit of an actor as well. If you look close, you'll see him in From Dusk Till Dawn. He was in Planet Terror. A variety of other things. He was in Dawn of the Dead back in the 70s. So hey. He did all of the special effects work on this. There's a scene where there's a snake kind of crawling around in one of the cabins. This was based upon a real event that happened to Tom Savini while they were staying at this crazy camp. Like a snake slithered into his room. So they're like, hey, we should do this in the movie. So impromptu, they just, hey, okay, we got a snake. And it was a real snake. And sadly, they really killed a real snake. It was very upsetting. There was no stunt snake in this. So they couldn't have the sign that says no animals were harmed. A snake was harmed in this movie. Which leads me to the next thing. 11 individuals met their end over the course of this movie. That's a lot. It's a lot, including the snake. Good grief. Tom Savini, there's a surprise at the end. I want to spoil everything, but I'm going to do it anyway. At the end of the movie, Alice, the lone survivor, spoiler alert, is in like a canoe in the middle of the lake. Oh, everything's cool. And then something comes up behind her. And it's the young kid Jason dragging her in the pool, back into the lake. Oh no, he's all kind of decomposing and disgusting. Originally, Tom Savini had just seen Carrie. And if you remember the end of Carrie, there's like a shocking scene where a hand comes out of the grave and grabs Amy Irving. He was trying to go for something like that, where, oh, it's all cool, everything's fine. Oh no, it's not. He was trying to go for that thing. Little did he know that by opening up that can of worms, they basically said, okay, well now we've got our antagonist for the rest of these movies, you know what I'm saying? Originally, they were going to release a Friday the 13th movie every year, but it was going to be kind of a different little, kind of a scary thing, unrelated. But with the success of the first Friday the 13th movie and the success with other slasher movies of that time, they're like, you know what? F it. We're bringing back Jason. Jason's the killer now. This is a trivia question. Remember, Friday the 13th Part 1, Mrs. Voorhees is the killer, not Jason. Jason doesn't become the killer until the second Friday the 13th movie. Here's where it gets kind of, crazy. So he had been in the lake for 20 years and hadn't aged, okay? But between Friday the 13th Part 1 and allegedly 5 years that Friday the 13th Part 2 comes out, now he's a grown man? Why is this? It's hard to explain. I can't understand it myself. One thing that's interesting about this movie is the soundtrack, that kind of iconic people have debated what it was saying since the dawn of time. Is it kill, kill, die, die? I don't know. Basically, they said it was supposed to be kind of these percussive sounds, ki, 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 and ma, 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 okay? That later in the movie where it becomes kill, mother, right? Like, mother, kill them for me kind of thing, because Mrs. Voorhees was kind of nuts. She was kind of, Jason was talking to her kind of thing. So, that, they really used that to kind of set the mood. And they only had music in it when something bad was about to occur. Whenever Jason, or excuse me, not Jason, whenever Mrs. Voorhees was around, kind of off camera, they would play the music to let the audience know, hey, the killer's around, okay? So it served a purpose. Whenever the killer wasn't around, there was no music at all throughout like 90% of the movie. So it was kind of an interesting thing that set it up. Now, conversely, right before something bad was going to happen, they'd kill the music, which would allow the audience to kind of relax. Oh, okay, everything's cool. And then the bad thing would happen. And the axe comes, or the knife, or whatever. So they used music really kind of to really strengthen what they were doing here. Another thing they did, they kind of ripped off from Jaws. Just like the music, the iconic music from Jaws, they had their own iconic music. They also stole the kind of first-person perspective from Jaws. So it was a lot of kind of like, okay, somebody's looking through the window, but you see it through the killer's perspective. And then you'll see like a hand come up or an axe or something. So they used all these interesting kind of choices to really kind of get it going. And the moral of the story is, don't smoke weed. Don't try to get some nookie at Camp Blood. When you're supposed to be watching the kids, basically. The kids aren't there yet, but you need to, get in character. They're going to be there in a couple weeks, right? No can do. No can do. The camp that they filmed it on is actually still going on right now in, near Hope, New Jersey. So if you ever want to visit there, I don't know if it's called Camp Crystal Lake. I don't think it is, hopefully. But they actually have paraphernalia of the original Friday the 13th movie up in like one of the walls, which I'm sure is great for the little kids coming to spend their week away from home. Oh yeah, here's all the horrifying memorabilia from that horror movie they filmed here. Good times. This movie currently has a 59% rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. Very upsetting. When it first came out, it was almost universally panned by critics. Some critics were so upset by this movie that they tried to publish the director's address, and Betsy Palmer, who played Mrs. Voorhees, her address, so people write them angry letters. Oh, we hate this movie so much. Gene Siskel said it was like Sean Cunningham who directed it. Oh, he's a despicable virus who should be thrown out of the industry. It's like, come on, it's a movie. However, in the time since, it's gotten kind of this cult following, and a lot of the critics have kind of turned around on it. They're like, not too bad. Adrienne King, who played the lone survivor Alice, she was supposed to have a much larger role in the sequel that came out a couple years later. But she was actually getting stalked by an obsessive fan of this movie. So she said, I'll do it, but get rid of me quick. Like, spoiler alert. She didn't want to be around for that much longer. Let me just get on with my life. So, rumor has it, Sally Field was also up for the role of Alice. So, hey. I went and looked. With the exception of Kevin Bacon, nobody else in this movie really did anything ever again. It's very sad. In many cases, this was the only movie they were in. What are you going to do? But 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. Hey! So good times had by all. Next week, I'm moving away from the horror genre. No can do. We're going to be going back to the comedy genre. We're going to be doing the classic Farrelly Brothers movie, Dumb and Dumber, starring Jim Carrey, Jeff Daniels, some other people. It's an all-star cast. Don't forget to go to our page on Facebook, Original B Movie Club. Don't forget to go to our page on YouTube. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at The B Movie Club. Send me any favorite scenes, favorite quotes, comments, questions, movie suggestions, anything. I'd love to talk to you guys, okay? And don't forget to spread the word. As you know, I end every episode with a totally out of context quote. And here it is. What, you just get off a spaceship or something? Come on, Colombian gold, man. Hash, the grass, the weed. Dig it? So there it is. I told you it's totally out of context. You don't know what he's talking about. He could be talking about anything. So thank you for joining us. Next week, Dumb and Dumber. Before we leave Dumb and Dumber, again, mark this down for trivia, for future reference. The killer in the first Friday the 13th movie was not Jason. It was Mrs. Voorhees. And remember, the iconic hockey mask, he didn't even wear that till the third movie. Okay? Jason wore the hockey mask in the third movie. Second one, he's wearing like a burlap sack or a flour bag or something. I don't know what it is. Okay? So, write this stuff down. You'll impress your friends. I don't know when it's going to come up, but you never know. So thank you for joining us. Next week, Dumb and Dumber, and be well.